There are some people who try to run their office based upon, survey results or what the paper says that you ought to do or whatever. Does that, and I know I didn't mention this to you, but I often wonder that, and I know there are people out there that wonder that too, and it's not necessarily something that's kind of pegged to your office, but there is that thought about the fact that the media might play a role, when you say that people may not agree with a decision you make or whatever. Do you ever weigh any of that into decision making?
Well, I can tell you that any elected official that says that they don't talk about and think about and wonder and try to anticipate what a newspaper or a TV is going to say or what the public perception is going to be, then I'd question them. Certainly, it crosses your mind. Here's what I say about it. The day that I start making decisions based on what the newspaper is going to print or how they're going to spin it or whether or not I'm going to get reelected or not, that's the day I don't need to be state attorney anymore. The decision needs to be made for the right reasons. Now, does that mean you don't consider or think about what's the newspaper going to say or what's the reaction of the community going to be? No, because I don't say that any reaction, whether it's media or the community, is going to be totally right or totally wrong. It should be considered because I'm not omniscient. I'm not God. I don't have all the answers. I need to consider everything before a decision is made. And understand this too, it's not just me. I said 60 to 70,000 cases a year. Do you think that I weigh in and I make the decision on all of them? Absolutely not. My prosecutors make most of those decisions, and most of them I never even know about, Gwen. The ones I find out about are the ones that are controversial, typically, or if something turns out really good. So my point, I guess I'm trying to make is you should always evaluate why you're making the decision you're making, and if it's for reasons that are selfish or personal, then you shouldn't make them. It should be for the good of the community. At the risk of sounding corny, it should be for the right reasons, because it's the right thing to do. And if I make a right decision, it's the right thing to do, and I'm criticized for it, I consider that a badge of honor to me because I've done the right thing.
Just one more question in that same vein, because there is a feeling, I'm sure, on the parts of some that, if the right person makes a phone call, then, it might have an impact. What would be your reaction or response to that?
Well, there's always the people wonder about the good old boy system or cronyism or somebody calling and, your best friend or somebody that helped you in your campaign or somebody that could help you in your campaign. Here's what I say to that. I get calls. People call the office and they want to talk to me. The first thing is they need to talk to the lawyer that's handling the case, if it's an issue about a case, or an investigator that's investigating it. If they're not happy with that, then they talk to that supervisor, and we have a chain of command. So that's number one. I believe in that. Do I talk to people? Sure. Do I listen to what they have to say? Sure. I do it because, I don't know all the answers, and I will consider things when it's appropriate. Again, it's the motivation. If you're considering something because of what somebody can do for you, that's wrong. If that person has some legitimate information that they're giving you about a case, should you consider it even if somebody might say, well, that person might have an undue influence upon you? I say yes, if it's the right thing to do. But the bottom line is, my policy, I don't get in the middle of what the prosecutors do on a daily basis, the decisions they make. I don't think that's right. If there's an allegation a prosecutor is unethical or has abused their authority or their power, we'll look into it. But I do not believe I should go to some prosecutor's office and say, this offer's not good enough, or you're being too strict, or you're not being strict enough. I believe that if it's justifiable, if it's reasonable, then even if I don't agree with it, Gwen, that if it's the right thing to do in that analysis, then let it be done.
And we know that our youth find themselves getting into situations. Sometimes it's based on poor parenting. Sometimes it's based on the fact that they're, idle hands. But there are situations that go on. Are there programs that your office has for youth that that would allow them an opportunity, a second chance, or an opportunity to actually become the kind of person that they were actually meant to be?
Yes, we have diversion programs for first-time juvenile offenders. When I say diversion, I mean instead of making them go to court and to work out a plea and possibly be on probation or be committed to a program, if it's a first-time offender, we can send them in an arbitration program where they meet with an arbitrator and they put them together with the victims. And we have some dynamic discussions there. We have a program in St. Johns County where we put them through drug testing, we put them through like a couple weekends of community service, etc. And if they successfully complete that, then they're done, the charges are dismissed. We have a crime and consequences class that Tomoka Correctional puts on, it's a little bit of a watered down scared straight, but they get inmates to come talk to the kids, they get corrections officers, and they treat the kids like they're in an institution setting. So it's an eye-opener for them. All of those programs we currently use. I've been approached and we've discussed with some of the ministers in the community in Daytona Beach, as a matter of fact, as well as some other places, potentially coming up with some additional diversion programs. The problem or the challenge is that when you do a diversion program, it has to be one that the judicial is comfortable with, because they're the ones that typically will order in a diversion. If it's not something that we do up front, you've got to have the public defenders, the state attorney's office, and law enforcement on board with it. We have some established programs that I'm very proud of and I'm comfortable with, but we always have an open mind for potentially getting more.
How does your program, do you all use or utilize volunteers in any level?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that. Yes, we do. We have volunteers for our diversions and for our arbitration program. In fact, I think we had a volunteer that retired recently that done over 20 years.
Oh, goodness.
A volunteer service. We're always looking for more. Any of you folks out there that are interested, you can go to our website. I think it's sao7.org. You can pull down an employment application. You have to fill one out, pass a background, but we're always looking for help, especially now when we're underpaid and we're short on staff. Absolutely.
Now, how many volunteers do you have?
Oh gosh, Gwen, you have to ask me that. I don't know. No, we do not have thousands. I would say less than 100, even spread out over the circuit. They could now, if you count interns that are from the universities and colleges and high schools that are working, maybe 100 plus. But purely volunteers would be less than 100, I would think.
Yeah.
But I'm going to find out now that you asked me, and I don't know that answer. I'm going to find out.
Hey, I like that. I like
yes,
that.
ma'am.
I actually used to participate in the arbitration program. I really and truly like what I hear you saying in terms of the programs that are available for you. Really all the programs that are there, because once these kids, and I know you would agree with this, once they get into the system, it's very, very hard to get them out of the system.
It's hard. In juveniles, the interesting statistic is about 10% of your juvenile offenders commit 90% of the crime. You get most of the kids come in, they get out. They do one stint, they get in it, they say, man, I've learned my lesson, they're gone. But you got that 10% that they keep coming back. And then ultimately, they graduate to the adult system. And that's absolutely what we don't want to happen. I've always said, Gwen, I'd rather prevent crime than prosecute it. We prosecute crime, we're good at it, we know how to do it, but prevention is something that we're trying to develop more and more programs for throughout the circuit. Weed and seed program's great, but funding's getting low for that. But community involvement, Gwen. Getting the communities, especially the communities that have the higher rate of criminal activity, to get them invested in doing something. That's important.
And do you find the parents are involved, or are they required to be involved?
In the juvenile system, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. They have to be. They have to participate. And if they don't, then there's